Transmigrated as a wealthy cannon fodder alpha. So I started ruining every scumbag's plans. If I sign this contract tonight, I lose everything. Adrian Cole heard the words leave his mouth before he understood why 200 people had gone silent. Crystal chandeliers burned above the Cole Grand Hotel ballroom. A jazz quartet had stopped mid-song. In front of Adrian rested a $38 million investment agreement, a fountain pen, and 3 people he knew from a life that was not his. 10 minutes ago, these hands had not been his. He had been an ordinary man finishing an Omegaverse novel past 2 in the morning. Adrian Cole had been a side character in that book, a rich alpha heir with a vicious temper, an obsession with the wrong Omega, and enough authority to become useful when villains needed someone to blame. Readers called him spoiled and stupid. The author called him cannon fodder. Then the original Adrian signed this contract. Within months, $44 million disappeared through Cole Industries. His credentials appeared on every approval. His cousin took control of the company. The Omega he loved described him as unstable. The family attorney authenticated the paperwork. Adrian lost his authority, his name, and everyone who might have believed him. Now the pen was between his fingers. Adrian? Lucas Cole asked from his right. His older cousin, Lucas Cole, Cole Industries chief operating officer and board member, wore the patient smile of a man accustomed to winning by making others feel childish. Beside Adrian sat Tyler Reed, the elegant Omega the original Adrian had chased for years. Tyler's sweet orange blossom scent barely escaped the expensive suppressor patch at his throat. Across the table, Cole Industries General Counsel Benjamin Shaw adjusted his glasses. "You were excited about this yesterday," Tyler said softly. Benjamin pushed the signature page closer. "Every provision has been reviewed." Adrian remembered the exact paragraph that mattered. Buried deep in the agreement was language that would let the investment create a chain of related transfers. The first transfer would look clean. The ones that followed would not. He lowered the pen. Lucas relaxed. Adrian stopped before the nib touched paper. "I want independent ownership verification before final approval." Benjamin blinked. "That is unnecessary." "Then it should be easy." Lucas laughed, but his scent changed. Alpha cedar turned sharper beneath the room's neutralizing system. "Since when do you care who sits behind holding companies?" "Since $38 million became attached to my name." Tyler touched the folder. "Are you sure you are not overthinking this?" The old Adrian would have reacted to that. He had always reacted when Tyler questioned his judgment. He would prove he was confident, sign faster, and spend the rest of the night wondering whether Tyler was impressed. This Adrian leaned back. "Maybe I am overthinking it. The auditors can tell me." The silence around the table shifted from confusion to alarm. Adrian pushed the folder toward Benjamin. "Add third-party escrow. Add external compliance review. No release until beneficial ownership is verified." Lucas's smile thinned. "That could delay closing." "Then closing gets delayed." For the first time, Lucas looked at him not as an embarrassing younger cousin, but as a problem. "Good." Adrian raised his champagne glass and smiled like the careless alpha everyone expected. He needed Lucas to believe the same man still sat here. He needed Tyler to think the same emotional leash still worked. He needed Benjamin to keep preparing traps that Adrian remembered. Every change would make the novel less reliable. Eventually it would stop protecting him. But tonight, the first trap had failed. Adrian looked at the 3 people who had buried him in a future only he remembered. This time, he intended to make them step into their own traps. By the time Adrian returned to the Cole penthouse, the thrill of winning had worn off. His phone held 37 messages from directors, investors, relatives, and executives asking why he had delayed the agreement. Lucas had sent only 4 words. "We should talk tomorrow." Adrian ignored him and opened the company directory. He searched for one name. Evan Miller. 26. Omega. Forensic accountant at the Cole Foundation. Excellent. Performance record. No disciplinary findings. Multiple recorded disagreements with Adrian Cole. In the novel, Evan had been one of the first innocent people the original Adrian destroyed. The next morning, Adrian entered the Foundation conference room at 8:30 exactly. Half the room looked surprised that he was on time. Evan sat near the far end in a charcoal suit, his light brown hair neatly combed, his expression controlled. His scent suppressor was almost perfect, but Adrian's new alpha senses caught a faint trace of rain and green apple beneath it. Evan noticed Adrian noticing. His grey eyes went colder. Adrian immediately looked away. Good start, he thought. Try not to become the creepy alpha he already expects. Benjamin stood near the presentation screen. Lucas attended by video. Tyler was not present. Adrian had quietly removed all unofficial guests from Foundation review meetings before breakfast. Benjamin began. We discovered an irregular transfer involving the Housing Assistance Fund. $75,000 was redirected without proper authorization. He placed documents on the table. The credentials belonged to Mr. Miller. Every face turned toward Evan. Evan did not flinch. Those credentials were copied from an archived authorization form. I reported unusual access 11 days ago. Benjamin gave him a sympathetic expression. There is no record of that report. Adrian remembered this scene. The original Adrian had called Evan a liar, accused him of stealing from vulnerable families, and ordered security to escort him out. Readers had hated Adrian for it. They had been right to. Adrian reached for the documents. Who verified the server logs? Benjamin paused. My office reviewed the relevant material. That was not my question. The room went still. Adrian turned to Evan. Do you still have your complaint? Yes. Send it to an independent auditor. Not Benjamin. Not Lucas. Not me. Benjamin frowned. We already have sufficient information. Then an independent review will make you look correct. Lucas's voice came from the screen. You are delaying another simple decision. I am checking whether it is simple. Evan watched. Adrian like a man waiting for the trick. Adrian slid the folder toward him. If you did not move the money, prove it. Evan's jaw tightened. And if the evidence points toward someone you trust? Follow it anyway. That changed something in his expression. Not trust. Not gratitude. Interest. The audit cleared Evan before noon the next day. His complaint existed. The suspicious login came from outside his department. Benjamin called it an administrative inconsistency. Adrian called it the second failed trap. But he did not feel triumphant. He remembered what the original Adrian had done to Evan in the book. The humiliation had been public. The correction had never come. So Adrian walked into the Foundation office that afternoon, where Evan was reviewing the audit result with 2 colleagues. I owe you something, Adrian said. Evan looked up warily. Adrian did not lower his voice. The accusation was unsupported. Your complaint was real. The failure was ours, not yours. The record will be corrected today. One colleague stared at him. Evan's expression barely changed, but the air around him softened. You did not have to say that in front of them. Yes, I did. Why? Because the old Adrian had shamed you in front of everyone. Adrian could not say that. Because the accusation was public. Evan held his gaze for a long second. Then he nodded once. It was the smallest possible acknowledgement. Somehow, it mattered more than the $38 million contract. The next trap arrived 48 hours later. Lucas entered Adrian's office carrying a thick folder and 2 coffees. Meridian Development, he said. 11 million. Urban Redevelopment. Strong return. We close Thursday. Adrian knew the name. In the novel, Meridian was the first shell route used to move coal money beyond the company's control. The original Adrian had approved it in under 10 minutes because Tyler told him decisive alphas were attractive. This time, Adrian flipped through the pages and pretended to be bored. Looks fine. Lucas's shoulders eased. Adrian picked up his pen. Same conditions as the birthday deal. The relaxation vanished. Again? Escrow. Ownership verification. External review. You are turning routine business into an investigation. Then routine business should survive. Lucas's cedar scent sharpened. For the first time, Adrian's own alpha instincts answered. Heat tightened beneath his skin, a primal urge to challenge. He hated how automatic it felt. He forced his shoulders loose. Power was exactly how the old Adrian had been manipulated. One insult, one challenge, and he would prove himself. Not anymore. Lucas signed off on the conditions because refusing would make him look afraid of transparency. 2 days later, $11 million moved into escrow. Thursday morning, Lucas walked into Adrian's office with a smile. Meridian closed. Adrian accepted the coffee. Congratulations. Lucas checked his phone. Then again. The smile weakened. Adrian sipped slowly. They're a problem. The release is delayed. That sounds inconvenient. Lucas made a call. His voice remained calm for less than a minute. When he hung up, the calm was gone. They want additional ownership documentation. Then Meridian should provide it. You know why this is happening. Because the condition you agreed to is being enforced. Lucas stared at him. Adrian smiled. Transparency feels personal only when somebody has something to hide. Lucas left without touching his coffee. 20 minutes later, the outside firm reported that Meridian had failed ownership verification. 2 controlling entities led to business partners tied to Lucas. The money remained protected. Adrian should have felt safe. Instead, someone knocked on his open door. Evan stepped inside with the same report in his hand. You knew Meridian needed extra review before anyone flagged it. I was cautious. You were cautious about my transfer too. I am developing excellent habits. Evan did not smile. He placed another page on the desk. There is a company behind one of Meridian's entities. Westbridge Advisory. Adrian looked at the name. Nothing. No memory. No chapter. No scene. A chill slid through him. Evan noticed. You did not know about this one. Adrian looked up. The future had produced something the novel had never shown him. His advantage was already breaking. Evan pulled a chair closer. Westbridge was registered for years ago. One original director worked for Benjamin Shaw's legal office. Adrian stared at the page. That was not in the... He stopped. Evan's eyes narrowed. Not in the what? Nothing. That answer is becoming a habit too. Adrian leaned back. You dislike my habits. I dislike mysteries that control company money. Reasonable. Evan studied him, then closed the file. I am going to trace Westbridge. You do not need my permission. I know. Adrian almost smiled. That was the first moment he understood why the original Adrian had disliked Evan so much. Evan did not bend. The old Adrian had mistaken resistance for disrespect because everyone around him had trained him to need obedience. This Adrian found it unexpectedly reassuring. Follow it, Adrian said. Even if it leads to you. Especially then. Evan's gaze held his. Adrian caught that rain and apple scent again, warmer now. Then Evan stood. Good. Because whatever you know, it is already becoming outdated. Adrian's smile disappeared. Evan tapped the Westbridge page. And when it stops being enough, you are going to need people who can find what you never saw coming. The words followed Adrian long after the door closed. He had begun this life believing survival meant remembering the story better than everyone else. Now the story was changing, and the Omega across from him had just proved memory would not be enough. Evan found the first thread the novel had missed. Then he found 6 more. Westbridge had received consulting payments from a coal subsidiary before Meridian existed. One director had worked for Benjamin. Another shared an address with a company tied to Lucas's former chief of staff. None of it proved fraud by itself, but the pattern was old. Too old to be a reaction to Adrian's recent behavior. That mattered. Evan submitted a formal archive request for historical records connected to Westbridge, Meridian, Benjamin, and Lucas. 2 days later, he entered Adrian's office carrying a faded storage box. Adrian stopped breathing when he saw the label. Eleanor Coal Estate. His mother. The novel had barely mentioned her. She had died. 6 years before the story began, remembered mostly as the former chairwoman whose death left Adrian wealthy and emotionally untethered. Westbridge appeared in one of her financial reviews, Evan said. That is why the archive search found this. Inside the box were handwritten notes, old board memoranda, printed emails, and a sealed envelope. For Adrian. His fingers shook as he opened it. Eleanor's letter was not dramatic. That made it worse. She wrote that several subsidiaries were reporting consulting expenses she could not reconcile. She warned him about overlapping directors and repeated payments routed through intermediaries. Near the bottom, she had underlined one sentence. If anyone tells you that asking questions makes you difficult, ask twice as many. Adrian read it again. Then Evan placed another stack of papers beside the letter. Emails written by the original Adrian. The tone was impatient. Sometimes rude. Sometimes furious. But the questions were right. Why were transfers moving through companies with overlapping directors? Why had Benjamin rejected an outside audit? Why was Lucas pushing approvals through when Adrian was traveling? Why did Tyler suddenly become cold every time Adrian questioned Lucas? Fragments of memory rose inside Adrian's borrowed body. Lucas laughing and calling him paranoid. Benjamin explaining that sophisticated structures were too complicated for Adrian to understand. Tyler withdrawing affection until Adrian apologized, then rewarding him with warmth. The manipulation had been training. Every reasonable suspicion became proof Adrian was unstable, every frustrated response became proof he could not be trusted. He knew, Adrian whispered. Evan sat across from him. The original Adrian. Adrian looked up sharply. Evan did not look away. You talk about him like he is someone else when you forget to be careful. Adrian's throat tightened. He could lie again. Instead he said, I cannot explain that yet. Evan exhaled through his nose. Convenient. I know. You keep saying that. Because you keep being correct. That almost earned a smile. Evan handed him one more document. A formal request for an independent forensic audit signed by Adrian Cole 3 years earlier. Rejected by Benjamin. Attached was a memorandum from Lucas recommending temporary limits on Adrian's financial authority because of emotional instability and obsessive suspicion. Adrian stared until the words blurred. He had judged the original Adrian exactly the way the novel taught readers to judge him. Spoiled. Reckless. Stupid. But this man had seen the trap years before it closed. He had simply been surrounded by people who benefited from convincing him that seeing it made him crazy. I thought I came here to fix his mistakes, Adrian said. Evan was quiet for a while. Some of his mistakes still need fixing. Adrian looked at him. Evan's voice remained steady. Being manipulated does not erase the people he hurt. I know. But being cruel sometimes does not mean he deserved to be destroyed either. That struck harder than comfort would have. Evan was not absolving Adrian. He was making room for 2 truths at once. Adrian lowered his eyes but did not look away from the letter. Evan offered no speech. He simply moved closer and began sorting the evidence. At some point, Adrian's control slipped. His alpha scent escaped into the room, cedar and black pepper sharpened by grief. He noticed Evan go still. Adrian immediately stood and moved toward the window. "Sorry." Evan frowned. "For what?" "My scent." "You are upset." "It happens. I can open the ventilation." "You can sit down." Adrian looked at him. Evan's scent remained calm. No fear. No submission. Just rain after heat. Adrian Saturday. They worked until the city outside turned black. Near midnight, Adrian wrote 3 words across the front of a new evidence file. "Restore his name." Evan read them. This time, when their fingers touched as he took the folder, neither man pulled away immediately. Adrian felt the tiny contact more sharply than any alpha instinct. He understood then that his goal had changed. Surviving was no longer enough. The man who lived this life before him had tried to make someone believe him. Adrian intended to make the truth impossible to bury. By Monday morning, Adrian stopped waiting for Lucas to attack. Eleanor's files revealed the real structure of the problem. Lucas did not win by creating one perfect fraud. He won by controlling information, isolating people, and making everyone believe resistance would cost more than silence. Adrian decided to dismantle that system. Outside counsel placed the relevant records under preservation hold. An independent audit committee received direct access to the investigation. A confidential reporting channel opened for employees who had concerns about old approvals. Then Human Resources submitted a restructuring proposal that would eliminate Evan's position. Adrian was not surprised. He did not block it personally. Instead, he gave the audit committee Evan's findings and recommended that Evan report directly to independent oversight. By afternoon, the committee approved the arrangement. Evan walked into Adrian's office holding the authorization letter. "You just made it harder for yourself to control my work." That was the point. Most executives would want the opposite. Most executives have not spent a week discovering what happens when too much power sits in one pair of hands. Evan raised an eyebrow. That was almost wise. "I am recording this conversation. You would still need my consent." Adrian laughed. It came too easily around him now. That frightened him more than Lucas. 2 days later, Coal Industries held its annual Foundation Gala. Tyler had arranged an interview with a business reporter and intended to imply Adrian's sudden reforms were signs of panic. Adrian remembered a similar scene from the novel. This time, hours before Tyler spoke, the company released a factual timeline of the Meridian Review. $11 million remained safe in escrow. The ownership concerns had been identified before money was released. When Tyler told the reporter Adrian was becoming erratic, she asked why those erratic decisions had protected the company. Tyler's expression froze. Adrian did not need to say a word. Later, he found Evan alone on a balcony overlooking the city. "You destroyed Tyler's interview without speaking to him," Evan said. "I am developing healthier hobbies." Evan smiled. The gala lights painted gold along the edge of his face. For once, he had removed his scent suppressor after the public events ended. Rain and green apple drifted softly in the cold air. Adrian kept a respectful distance. Evan noticed. "You always stand farther away when I am not wearing a patch." "I have excellent manners." "You have anxiety." "That too." Evan looked over the railing. "You know what I noticed? That I look incredible in formal wear. That every time Lucas tries to take someone's choices away, you respond by giving them more." Adrian's humor faded. "Dependence is how they built everything," he said. Tyler controlled affection. Benjamin controlled information. Lucas controlled access. The old Adrian kept reaching for the same people who were making him weaker. "And what are you trying to build?" "Something that still works when people stop being afraid." Evan turned toward him. The quiet between them changed. Adrian felt it before he understood it. Not instinct. Choice. He wanted to step closer. He did not. Evan did. Only half a step. My mother owns a bookstore in Vermont, he said. She would like that answer. Would she like me? She would make you read every contract twice before deciding. So no. Evan laughed. Adrian's hand rested on the balcony railing a few inches from his. For a moment, Evan looked down at it. Then his phone rang. The warmth vanished. His expression changed as he read the message. What? Evan handed him the phone. A financial news site had published an anonymous leak. Alpha Heir installs Omega favorite to control internal audit. Below the headline was a photograph from the gala balcony, cropped to make their closeness look secretive. The article claimed Evan had received special access because of an intimate relationship with Adrian. Adrian's stomach dropped. Lucas had finally found a move he had not predicted. By morning, it was everywhere. The board's ethics committee suspended Evan from the investigation pending review of the alleged conflict. New reports were temporarily routed to outside counsel instead of Evan. 2 employees withdrew planned statements after reporters appeared outside their homes. For the first time since Adrian woke in this world, Lucas had won a round. And Evan paid the price. Adrian stared at the suspension notice until his hands shook. I can force a board vote, he said. Evan stood across the office, pale but composed. No, I have enough support. And make every headline look true. It is a lie. Then do not prove its argument by using your power to protect me. Adrian hated that he was right. His alpha instincts were screaming at him to act, to challenge, to shelter. Evan's career was being dragged through the same kind of machine that had destroyed the old Adrian. Adrian could crush the suspension. And if he did, every observer would see an alpha heir overriding rules for an omega he cared about. So Adrian did the harder thing. He signed a statement recusing himself from all decisions involving Evan's employment or investigative access. Then he voluntarily transferred his own temporary oversight powers to the independent committee until the ethics review ended. The decision cost him. Lucas moved immediately. 3 transactions Adrian had planned to review were postponed and rerouted. A board ally switched sides. Anonymous accounts flooded social media with clips of the old Adrian screaming at employees. That night, Adrian sat alone in his dark office and wondered whether he had finally changed the story beyond repair. A knock came at the door. Evan. You are suspended. From the investigation. Not from existing. Adrian almost laughed, but it broke halfway. This is because of me. This is because Lucas needed a weapon. He used me to make you one. Evan came closer. Adrian looked away. I should have kept more distance. Do not do that. What? Turn respect into punishment. Adrian frowned. Evan continued. You did not touch me without permission. You did not promote me. You moved my work away from your authority. The headline is a lie. Do not rewrite every choice we made just because somebody found a cruel way to describe it. Adrian swallowed. I am afraid I will destroy you anyway. Evan's expression softened. Then, slowly, he reached out. His hand closed around Adrian's wrist. Not submissive. Not hesitant. Deliberate. Then listen to me when I tell you I am still here. Adrian looked at their hands. His pulse jumped beneath Evan's fingers. For 1 second, all the company noise vanished. Can I? Adrian stopped. Evan waited. Adrian looked at him. Can I hold your hand? The corner of Evan's mouth lifted. You really are anxious. Extremely. Yes. Adrian turned his wrist and threaded their fingers together. Nothing dramatic happened. No fated bond. No instinctive claim. No universe declaring them inevitable. Just warmth. Choice. And somehow that felt bigger. The setback lasted 5 days. The ethics review found no evidence Adrian had given Evan improper benefits, his authority came from the independent committee, and the balcony photograph proved nothing. But the damage made Lucas careless. While Evan was suspended, Lucas believed the investigation had stalled. He began moving people again. Benjamin requested access to archived legal records. Tyler contacted 2 former employees and offered to help them remember Adrian's worst years. Lucas called an emergency board meeting. Evan returned to the investigation the morning before that meeting. He entered Adrian's office, placed his reinstatement letter on the desk, and said, trying not to look too happy, "Somebody might write another article." Adrian failed completely. The emergency meeting began Tuesday at 9. Adrian knew Lucas had changed tactics the moment he saw the presentation. No shell companies. No missing money. No technical reports. Only Adrian Cole's past. Old emails appeared on the screen. Cruel ones. Angry ones. Complaints from employees he had humiliated. Records of impulsive decisions. A transcript from a foundation meeting where the original Adrian tried to remove Evan from a project because Tyler called him disrespectful. These documents were real. That made them dangerous. Lucas faced the board. For weeks, Adrian has claimed he was manipulated. Before we allow him to restructure this company around that claim, everyone should remember the man he actually was. Tyler spoke next. His voice trembled beautifully. Adrian often made other people responsible for his emotions. If someone disagreed, he treated it as betrayal. Benjamin added employee complaints to the record. Every director watched Adrian. Lucas folded his hands. Are you going to tell us all of this was fabricated? The old Adrian would have exploded. The man inside this body felt the borrowed memories pushing at him. Humiliation. Rage. The desperate need to deny weakness. Adrian stood. No, Lucas blinked. Adrian continued. Some of those messages are mine. Some complaints are justified. I treated people badly. I used authority carelessly. I let anger become someone else's problem. Tyler's expression changed. Adrian looked toward Evan. Mr. Miller deserved better from me long before this investigation began. Evan held his gaze. Adrian faced the board again. I was manipulated. That is also true. People encouraged my worst instincts because it made me easier to control. But manipulation does not erase the people I hurt while it was happening. One director lowered her eyes. Adrian kept going. I have apologized where I can. I have corrected records where I have the authority. I will keep doing that. But my past failures are not proof that I committed financial fraud today. Lucas's jaw tightened. That distinction is convenient. It is necessary. Adrian stepped away from the table. If I did something, prove it. Do not use the worst version of me as evidence for crimes you still cannot connect to me. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Evan stood. Lucas frowned. This is a board matter. My name appears in your evidence. He faced the directors. Adrian Cole treated me unfairly in the past. I will not pretend otherwise. I did not trust him when this investigation began. Adrian's chest tightened. But I also know what he did when nobody was watching. He preserved records that embarrassed him. He gave my department independence from his authority. When a false article accused him of using power to protect me, he gave up more power instead of proving the lie true. Evan glanced at Adrian. People can perform regret. They cannot easily fake a pattern of change that costs them something. The words hit harder because of the week they had just survived. Lucas had tried to turn their closeness into shame. Instead, it became evidence. The board did not clear Adrian that morning. But it refused Lucas's motion to suspend him. For the first time, Lucas left a boardroom without controlling the story. 2 days later, he made his final move. At 9:30 Thursday morning, every director received an emergency report alleging that $44 million had disappeared through coal subsidiaries over 5 years. The authorization trail led to Adrian. This was the disaster from the novel. The one that had destroyed him. At 2 o'clock, the board reconvened. Lucas stood beside the screen. Benjamin sat with archived documents. Tyler, invited as a witness, waited near the end of the table. Evan stood with the independent compliance team. Lucas displayed transfer orders carrying Adrian's credentials. Benjamin confirmed that several signatures matched old records. Tyler described conversations in which Adrian once bragged he could move family money without asking anyone. Adrian interrupted none of them. He let Lucas finish. Then Lucas turned toward him. $44 million moved under your authority. Do you still expect us to believe everyone else is responsible? Adrian looked at Evan. Show them the complete record. Evan connected his laptop. The transactions are real, he said. A murmur moved through the room. The assumption about who initiated them is not. The first screen showed old approvals. Evan did not bury the board in technical language. He simplified everything to one question. Where was Adrian when these approvals were made? On one date, he had been in Boston. The approval came from a device in Benjamin's legal suite. On another, he had been on a flight. A printer in Lucas's administrative office produced the transfer packet minutes before his credentials were used. On a third, an archived authorization template was copied after Adrian had already asked for an outside audit. Then Evan showed ownership. Meridian connected to Westbridge. Westbridge connected to consulting companies tied to Lucas's longtime business associates. Older payments followed the same route. Lucas leaned forward. Shared systems prove nothing. Correct, Evan said. So we looked for motive and preparation. One final document appeared. A draft memorandum created less than 2 weeks earlier. If investigators moved beyond Adrian, the document assigned responsibility for the disputed transfers to Benjamin Shaw. Benjamin went pale. I have never seen that version. Lucas's voice sharpened. Benjamin, be careful. Benjamin looked at him slowly. You were preparing to blame me. Lucas said nothing. Benjamin closed the folder in front of him. I am requesting independent counsel effective immediately. I will cooperate with investigators and provide the original instructions and communications I received. Tyler stared at Lucas. You told me Adrian was imagining everything. For the first time, Lucas's calm cracked. You all benefited when he was impossible to control, he snapped. Do not stand there pretending you were victims. The room went silent. Adrian opened Eleanor's archive box. He placed her letter beside the original forensic audit request. This did not start when I changed, he said. It started years ago, when someone realized it was easier to make Adrian look unreliable than answer his questions. Lucas stared at him. Adrian's voice stayed quiet. You made one mistake. Lucas laughed bitterly. Only one. You treated everyone as disposable. Adrian looked at Benjamin. Your lawyer. Then Tyler. The person who helped you control me. Then the directors. Employees who saw too much. Finally Evan. Anyone who could tell a version of the truth you did not own. Evan displayed the final map. Every shell company, reused approval, hidden owner, old warning, and recent attempt to shift blame formed one continuous pattern. Adrian realized something as he watched Lucas lose the room. He had not won because he remembered the future. That advantage had disappeared long ago. He had won because Evan found what the book never showed. Employees spoke once fear stopped controlling them. Records survived. People Lucas treated as tools were finally free to choose whom they believed. The evidence became stronger than the story Lucas had spent years forcing everyone to accept. And for the first time since Adrian woke in this body, he did not need to know what happened next. 4. Months later, Cole Industries released the final results of the independent investigation. Lucas Cole was removed from every executive and board position, stripped of delegated authority, and referred to federal investigators after financial records, ownership documents, and witness statements confirmed his role in the $44 million scheme. Benjamin resigned as general counsel and cooperated with investigators through his own attorney. He faced professional discipline for his role in reusing archived approvals. Tyler returned the financial benefits he had received through Lucas's network and publicly acknowledged that he had helped manipulate Adrian's reputation whenever Adrian questioned suspicious transactions. The consequences were not theatrical. They were slower and more permanent: positions, money, professional standing, control. Gone. For Adrian, the most important result was a 4-page correction added to the permanent corporate record. It stated that Adrian Cole had raised legitimate concerns years before the fraud was exposed, requested an independent forensic audit, and been improperly dismissed when those warnings threatened people who benefited from keeping him silent. Adrian read the paragraph alone. Then Evan entered. Adrian handed him the page. "His name is back." Evan understood. "Then you finished what he started?" Adrian shook his head. "We did." The board offered Adrian broader control of Cole Industries. He refused. Instead, the company created independent oversight, stronger whistleblower protections, outside review for major related party transactions, and a foundation structure no single family executive could dominate. Employees whose records had been damaged received corrections. Evan was appointed Director of Independent Compliance after the Audit Committee and trustees approved him unanimously. Adrian did not vote. Evan made sure he knew that. "You look offended," Evan said. "I enjoy being unnecessary. You are adapting beautifully." Their relationship changed slowly because both understood what power could do when desire disguised itself as entitlement. Adrian never wanted Evan to wonder whether his career came from being an Omega near the Alpha heir, and Evan never wanted affection mistaken for surrender. So they chose each step. Coffee after work. Dinner without discussing Lucas. A Saturday at Evan's mother's bookstore in Vermont, where she made Adrian carry 6 boxes, read the fine print on a repair estimate, and then quietly gave him the largest slice of pie. The first time Adrian asked if he could kiss Evan, Evan laughed so hard he had to look away. "What? You survived a conspiracy?" That did not answer my question. Evan turned back, eyes warm. "Yes." The kiss was gentle. No claiming bite. No overwhelming alpha instinct. Just Evan's hand against Adrian's chest and Adrian's careful fingers at the side of Evan's face. Rain and green apple. Cedar and black pepper. 2 scents mixing without either swallowing the other. Months later, there was one final truth Adrian could not leave buried. They were eating dinner at the small lake house that had belonged to Eleanor. Adrian put down his fork. "There is something I have never told you." Evan looked at him over his glass. "The book?" Adrian froze. Evan smiled faintly. "You are not subtle." Adrian laughed once, nervously. Then he told him everything. His previous life. The novel. Falling asleep. Opening his eyes in Adrian Cole's body. Knowing the first contract. Knowing Evan would be falsely accused. Knowing Meridian. And the fear that grew every time the world stopped following the story. Evan listened without interrupting. When Adrian finished, the room felt impossibly quiet. "I know how it sounds." "Yes," Evan said. Adrian stared at him. "That is all. What do you want?" "A dramatic fainting spell." "I would accept one." Evan reached across the table and took his hand. "I cannot prove why you came here." Adrian swallowed. "But I can prove what you did after you arrived." "And what does that prove?" "That whatever put you here did not choose the man you became." Evan squeezed his fingers. "You did." The word settled somewhere. Adrian had carried fear since the first night. Not absolution. Not destiny. Choice. In spring, they returned to the lake house. Evan planted basil, rosemary, and tomatoes beside the porch. Adrian repaired the kitchen and still managed to burn toast. You can dismantle a 5-year fraud, Evan said one morning, staring at 2 blackened slices, but breakfast defeats you. Everyone needs one weakness. You have more than one. Cruel. They carried coffee outside. Sunlight moved over the lake. No board packets waited. No hidden accounts. No future Adrian needed to predict. After a long silence, Adrian looked at Evan. If the company disappeared tomorrow, would you still choose this? Evan glanced at their joined hands. I chose you when I did not trust you. I chose you when the whole company thought I was your weakness. I chose you when staying would have been easier to avoid. Adrian's throat tightened. Evan moved closer. So yes. Adrian leaned his forehead against Evan's. The original Adrian had spent years being told that every instinct was wrong until anger became the only part of him anyone believed. The man living his life now had made mistakes too. He had hidden the truth. He had relied on knowledge no one else possessed. He had nearly confused protection with control. But he had learned something the novel never understood. A life was not redeemed by winning every fight. It was redeemed in smaller choices. Listening when power made it easier to command. Admitting harm when excuses were available. Letting other people remain free even when freedom felt frightening. Telling the truth before love became another kind of cage. Lucas had lost because he believed people existed to be used. Adrian survived because he finally learned to let people choose. Evan chose him. And Adrian, for the first time in either life, chose a future he did not already know.